Okay, team, here. So a little quick video on the Rembrandt for Cycle 2 Great Artists, our first lesson, week 13 coming back. So first off, here's the timeline I put together. So on the left are the timeline cards and the numbers that go with those, and then red I did the art periods in there just to make those stand out because we're studying art. And then this kind of gives us a little context of, so they don't totally line up space-wise, but the dates, you'll be able to figure it out. Our artists on the right, the ones in bold are the ones that we're studying, and then the other artists here, so Vermeer, MPL, and Audubon, those are the additional artists in the artists and composers cards that kind of help flesh out our picture of what's happening in art. So over here just gives the context of what's happening in culture with our artists. So if you want to refer to that when we're talking with students to start off with, go ahead. And so just real quick, here are those sheets that I put together. So overview of Rembrandt, his style, what he was working in, and what he's known for, why are we studying, why is he really significant. Here's some famous works, and these are largely the famous works that are highlighted on his artist card on the back. The information there is really great. So you could talk more about that, but again, time is going to be an issue. And then these are some examples of his work. This is from Half a Hundred Acre Wood. She has 2 more pages that are samples for the Great Artist lesson, and they're just nice big pictures, give a variety of his work. And I just chose this one because we're focusing on just the portions of the self-portrait, and so we're just studying. We don't need to study the expressions and chiaroscuro, which is that high contrast of light and dark, which Rembrandt was known for in this period of time. Okay, so anyways, the warm-up sheet. So I would definitely read through these things beforehand so you're familiar with them. But the big thing for starting out working on this grid is that it's kind of, as I was doing just a quick practice, it made me think of our blob drawings for geography, of how we're just kind of looking at proportions and space and figuring out where these things go, these features of the face, how they go together and where they lay out so that it's accurate. And then once you progress and you've practiced a couple times, then you don't need the grid anymore. You just kind of can look at something and see. The other thing about using this grid and these proportions is that every face is different. So these guidelines just help us see the face and be able to compare. So if I know the eyes are halfway down and they're about 1/5 of the width of the face, each eye, and then an eye between that spacing, I can, if I know that, I can compare that and look for that when I'm drawing an actual person, a self-portrait, and take notice of where their eyes are, how far they are apart, their ears, how do their ears line up to the top of their eye or their eyebrow, how wide the mouth is, all those kinds of things. It just helps us to see and observe those parts. The other part is we're starting to work on this is that this is just kind of practice that blob, getting things placed and working through our oils drawing method again, which is awesome. I love that method of just seeing the shapes, because we, when we're drawing or we're trying to draw what's in our heads, oftentimes we are thinking about all of what we know about that shape or that object, how we can see the whole thing. And when we're looking at something, we frequently can't see the whole thing, like ears, for example, or when we draw a nose, we want to draw all the lines instead of just looking at the hard shadow lines or creases that would define it so that it looks accurate. Okay, so get started. So we'll just start section by section and move down and do kind of our contour lines first and place dots so that we can draw using oils, curved lines and dots to fill it in, and just it's just practice, warm up. You're not going to have a lot of time, obviously only 30 minutes for the whole subject, so we're just going to go quick. The other note here is that on our grid, our hairline. So the actual head is down a little bit, but because of our hair fluffs up, you know, depending on how much hair you've got, of course, your hair, the top of your line's going to go over a little bit. The ears, you know, depending on the shape of their ears, it's going to go over this. But this is just our general guideline. So halfway down, you know, there's divided into the fifths vertically, you know, and then I also put a center line here. So you can talk about symmetry and proportion and scale. In the lesson plan, I'll list some of that grammar that you can pull up and use as much as you want in your time. Okay, so first quarter. So I'm going to just draw the top line of the head, just real quickly, trying to make it fairly symmetrical. And if you advise students to just draw lightly, then it's easy to change our lines, go back over, and just, you know, when you're drawing actual portraits, it takes a lot of time and revising your lines. So I'm just focusing on each quarter. So if I just look at this, it's just a slight curve of a line. Instead of focusing on a whole area, getting that whole area right, just focus on one area at a time. Artists frequently use grid lines to draw lots of things, so you can just focus on one area at a time. So I'm going all the way down there, and now I'm doing the other side. Okay, just want to move quickly. So generally it works pretty good. I could always go back and just move those lines out and then come back in and erase a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Okay, so I've got the contour of the face, the outside shape. Now I'm going to go, so here's our halfway down, and it's really hard for students to learn that, or just trust that eyes are actually halfway down the face, because when we look at faces, we focus on the eyes, and so we always think that they should be up higher instead of all that hairline. But so if you trust that eyes are halfway down, just make little dots so we can mark the edges of the eyes, and then I come down and the nose almost touches down to this, in the bottom of this third quarter line, so I'll just make, and it kind of goes just to the outside here. If we look here on our fifths, the edges of the nose line up generally with the edges of the inside of the eyes. So I'll just make little dots because it's up a little bit here, a little dot to go to the bottom. And then the mouth falls into the bottom quarter here, and the edges of the mouth are just outside the edges of the nose. So, and in this top half of the bottom quarter, so I'll do dots out here, and I'll just make a rough line for a dot for the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to focus on these main features and just use curved lines, just, you know, not getting too fancy. With older students, you could certainly talk about, especially when you move into the project with the self-portrait, of noticing the different shapes of that people have different shaped eyes and mouths, and talking a little bit more about that. Or jawline is another big one. Okay, so just for nose, we're just going to do curved lines on the outside, and then frequently for nose, and just for bottom shapes of the bottom nose, and little dots for the nostrils, and curved lines for the mouth. Okay, curved line for the inside of the mouth, right? Eyes, dots on the inside of the eyes. And then eyebrows, so kind of roughly around the inside of the eye. Curved lines. Okay. And let's do the hairline real quick. So it's that top quarter and then kind of curves over to the halfway mark. So just lightly. All right, and do the ears placement. So just above, right around here. There. Okay, and I could draw. I know the Abecedarian students, we love quick mark making, so you could just have them quickly, you know, do repetition to make a hairline and draw that down a little bit, or do long hair, whatever you'd like to do, and then make some curved lines in here. All right, fairly human form. You could certainly go in and add more lines. And I'll talk about shading in the next lesson with Linnaeus, but we'll just focus on getting lines down in proportions and scale for this one. Okay?